How do we use the calm before the storm to supersize and grow our business? Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, also known as Pajama Grandma, talking about the idiom, the calm before the storm. And this is actually an ancient Greek proverb, and since the 1500s, writers and poets and people have talked about and noticed and observed the sense of calm or peacefulness before all hell breaks loose or before a storm. Literally talking about the weather. And how many of us have sat around and observed and watched storms roll in? I know one of my favorite things to do when I was a little kid was we had 3 big porches on our house. So whatever direction a storm was coming from or going, you could probably sit on one of the porches. 2 of them were screened in and covered, so they were pretty cool. But one just had pillars and was wide open. So it was really fun to sit on that porch when the weather was, coming from the right direction and watch this sense of just complete calm and quiet and peace right before all the big black dark clouds would roll in, and then thunder and lightning and rain and hail and everything else would roll by. And then again, of course, after all of that happened, we would inevitably have the beautiful peace and calm of a rainbow. This happens in our lives all the time, right? Not just in weather, but in our businesses when we're growing our businesses and building our businesses. There tends to be a peaceful time right before we have a growth spurt, or right before we lose a big customer, or right before something bad happens in our organization and in our business. There's this sense of everything's clicking along fine, and we're getting this sense of peace and low stress, and everything is amazing in our business, and then boom, something will happen. It might be something good that happens. Maybe we get a big order and we're not sure how we're going to fulfill on that, or maybe we have a crisis or a catastrophe. I remember coming into my business, and every once in a while we would have a flood. And I would come in early in the morning, I'd be the first one there, and the USDA kitchen would be flooded. And I could either panic and freak out, or I could deal with the situation, clean up the flood, stop what was causing it, and then get back to our normal activity. And that's how I learned to deal with emergencies and crises. And actually before then, I learned in corporate America that sometimes things were going to happen, and how you behaved during that crisis followed you long after that crisis. So for example, we had a gentleman in my first job making toilet paper, incidentally, who cut off one of his fingers and then was trying to hide it because he didn't have a very good safety record. And I had to take him and his finger, once we found it, to the hospital to get it reattached. I could have freaked out in that situation, right? Everybody else, a lot of the other team leaders were freaking out and didn't know what to do. And I'm like, okay guys, guess what? Nobody has time to freak out right now. We need to find his finger. We need to get it on ice. We need to get him to the hospital before he bleeds anymore around the factory and take care of the situation. So I'm the one that ended up taking him to the hospital. We went to the hospital, got him fixed up, came back. And by the time I got back, you would think, okay, now I can freak out. But by the time I got back and had been through all that and we'd handled it, the worst was over. He was getting better. He was recovering. All the drama and trauma had been cleaned up. And so we weathered the storm. But from then on, of course, I had the reputation as the person that remained calm in an emergency and could handle it in again, I don't want to say professional, but in a calm way to get us through the crisis, to make sure that we mitigated and we kept things to a minimum, so that we didn't have too much impact, too much negativity that followed an incident, which was a good thing because we had other things happen when I was working through that organization. We had a lady that we actually had 2 fatalities, not in our factory, but in a neighboring factory, and then we did in one of the coal factories where I worked. And so again, another crisis that we had to find a positive way to work our way through and help people through, to mitigate and to eliminate the potential damage that could have resulted from those situations. It's like, I live in a place where we have blizzards, so we prepare for foul weather. A lot of people live in places where there's hurricanes and tornadoes or tsunamis or anything else. Some people prepare, other people act as if they're never going to get hit with any kind of a crisis or situation. And it's up to you what you're going to do, but it's the people that don't prepare that end up panicking then at the last minute, or they cause the storm to happen faster and be more severe because they didn't prepare. my dad used to have a saying, and I love it. He said, piss poor planning on your part does not create an emergency for me. And I guess I adopted that philosophy as well and decided, hey, if I just do a few preventative measures, if I just have a few plans in place, I'll be fine through anything up or down that happens in my business and my organization. So we always had contingency plans. So how do you use the calm before the storm to handle whatever comes your way? Number one, you plan and prepare. You have contingency plans. You have what if scenarios in your mind as to, well, if this happens, if I come in and the kitchen's flooded, this is what I need to do first, second, third. This is how I respond. If I, if people call in sick and can't show up for work, or if people just don't show up for work, what am I going to do? What's my plan? What's my backup? And have a backup plan. Life is always going to throw us curveballs, and how we respond to them stays with us and the people that we interact with long after the crisis or the situation has gone by. I've had so many business ups and downs where if I'd freaked out, I would have ended up going out of business and lost my business. But by handling the situation calmly, okay, well, what's the next thing I need to do in this situation? And that's one of the best things that we can always do. If we didn't plan, if we didn't prepare, if things are happening that we hadn't planned for, guess what? We're going to struggle, but it doesn't mean we can't make it through it, because everything that ever happens is temporary, right? And it's how we respond to it that really matters. So how can you use the calm before the storm to weather any situation? Make sure that you're planning, make sure that you're prepared. And then, if you didn't, when the you-know-what proverbial hits the fan, how do you respond? How do you react? What do you do? Do you deal with it one thing at a time in a professional, calm, leader type way, or do you freak out like everybody else and end up causing more drama, more trauma, and making the storm way worse than it needed to be in the first place? Who we are shows through everything, and so we always want to remember when we're facing positive or negative situations in our business to behave in a way that if we were to look in the mirror at night, we would feel good about it. My dad again, obviously at times of high emotional stress, I remember my father because he was a great example for me. One of his favorite poems was The Man in the Mirror, or I think it's called The Man in the Mirror. I think that's the wrong name, but that's the more commonly known name. But it's basically, you go throughout your life, and at the end of your life, when you look in the mirror, how do you feel about the person in your reflection in the mirror? Everything we do is a reflection of who we are on the inside. So another way to prepare during the calm before the storm is always be making yourself a better human being. In times of crisis, in times of struggle, people look to entrepreneurs. They look to business owners to lead the way and set the example. So be the example rather than the warning whenever there is an opportunity to lead and grow. Stick to business as usual as much as possible when you're coming into a storm. There's always a solution to anything that we're faced with. It's just a matter of, are we open-minded enough, and are we looking for those solutions? Will there be a disrupt in the economy coming up here? Absolutely, positively. Will a lot of our businesses be affected and impacted? Absolutely, positively. But it's how we face, and I'm talking about, of course, the coronavirus, how we face that and how we deal with those shortages, those emergencies, those challenges that will show the rest of the world who we are. We can face them with a sense of leadership and positivity, or we can face them like a victim and doom and gloom. There will be people that rise to the occasion in positive ways throughout this situation. There will be people that sink and drown in these situations. And guess what? It's entirely up to us whether we float and thrive or whether we sink and die. And taking the people that we serve along with us. Now, I feel like we have a moral obligation to help and take the people that we serve along with us. It's a great opportunity to help people, especially if people are going to be out of their normal routine. They're going to be looking for things to do. They're going to be bored. If I'm not going to work every day, what am I going to do all day with myself and my kids? They're going to be looking for things. So if you can help them with that, there's going to be a whole new set of problems that we can help people with over the next weeks and maybe even months to come. And so find ways that your business, that you as a leader can help to serve and impact all of this in a positive way. And you'll come out of it better off than when we entered it. That's the way situations and weathers and storms work. That's it. I'm kind of off topic. The calm before the storm. Do you feel like we're in one? Have you experienced calms before the storm? Share in the comments below. If I can help you in any way, hit me up in the comments below. You know, I will be here every day sharing an interesting idiom. What does it mean? Where does it come from? How can you use it to impact your business, your life, and the lives of the others that you're here to impact? Have an awesome day, and I'll, of course, see you tomorrow.